If our company needs a, updated policy on, I don't know, PTO, or if it needs an updated policy on travel expenses or something like that, propose it. Don't just be mad about it, just propose it.
Do it. Do it.
Build the change that you want to see in the world.
Hi, everybody. It's Lorne Rubis here, and we're on Culture Talks, and I want to introduce you to Christie Lagally, who is the CEO and founder of Rebellyous Foods. There you are in Seattle with your 90-degree weather shining down on you, and so great to have you here, Christie.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've been really looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly what we're going to do is we're going to have fun. So Christie's the founder and CEO of Rebellyous Foods, and I know she likes to have a lot of fun because there's humor everywhere on her website. Like, it's just nerds are for birds. And we're going to come back and talk about that. But if you go to Rebellyous and you see it right there on Christie's t-shirt, you'll find out that they're a team of animal-loving engineers on a mission to create the perfect plant-based nugget. And you've been doing it since, I think, 2017, Christie? Oh,
that's
my
right.
goodness.
We've been at this for a while. It turns out it's a hard problem to crack, but
yes. And what we do is we focus on next-gen leaders, and I would definitely put you in that category, that people that are taking on the world's nastiest problems and trying to find a better way, but also trying to build better work cultures, and they go hand in hand. And so our focus is on organization culture, but we want to find a little bit out of the, and of course people go to the website, but tell us a little bit about Rebellyous. Like you're like a space engineer. You've got a mechanical engineering degree. You've got, you've been at UBC, and then you worked on the Canada arm that's on the space station. And then you did all this stuff on food science. But tell us around, how did you get to Rebellyous? Like, what happened?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. I started my career as an aerospace engineer. I worked on a wide variety of products, including the 30-meter telescope project out in Hawaii. I worked on one of the early, essentially, I worked for a company that called ATK Space Systems, that did deployables, and they were working on everything from GPS satellites to solar sails, some of the early prototype solar sails, which are obviously solar-propelled spacecraft. And so I went to the University of California at Santa Barbara, and then also my master's degree at University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Prior to that, I also got a degree in organizational psychology. So the interest of the topic of culture and how organizations work and how they work more effectively or less effectively, how they interact with people and society and culture is definitely of interest to me, and to this day, I continue to read on such things because it is really important. Like, our impact in the world isn't just through technology. In fact, I have often felt like technology is quite the easy part.
Yeah.
Getting it out to the world, making it work, getting people to use technology, getting it to actually move the needle on very serious social issues like climate change and human health and animal welfare are always, are literally the hard part. Technology is kind of the fun and easy part. Lots of people can come up with great ideas, and they do, and I'm really glad that they do. Getting it out to the world is a whole different deal.
That is so right on the money. So what happened? So one day how did you transition into food science and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I can't say I really ever transitioned to food science. I started the company Rebellyous Foods back in 2017. I actually started it as Seattle Food Tech, and that is actually still our corporate name.
Okay.
And then we added the brand Rebellyous Foods in about 2019, so about 2 years later. But I started the company as Seattle Food Tech because I wanted to apply what I knew about mechanical engineering and manufacturing technology. And that was actually where I focused while I was at Boeing Commercial Airplanes, was developing the tools to do automated production, automated assembly, automated measurement, automated fitting, and placement of equipment, especially large pieces of equipment like a 777 wings and like motors and things like that, or engines. So that was what I worked on at Boeing, and I saw an opportunity to apply that to the alternative protein space. I had been a longtime ethical vegan. I've been a vegan for 30 years. And because I care about animals, I really believe in animal welfare. And I really hope one day we can get away from the tragedy that is factory farming and the impact it's having on our environment. But I also believe in human health and the benefits we can have by eating healthier and more sustainable food. And then, of course, now that we really understand the impact of global pandemics, right now we're seeing bird flu just ripping through intensified factory farming of animals, as well as wild animals as well. And it's just really coming home. No pun intended, it's really coming home to roost. Are the impact that intensified industrialized animal agriculture has on our planet, our health. And so, quite a few people over the last 10 or 15 years have been working on the issue of how do we replace meat and how do we replace dairy and cheese and things like that. Largely the cheese and milk people have been very successful because, milk is now 25% of all milk sold in the United States is, roughly speaking, is already plant-based. Cheese is getting there. It's not quite as impactful as that. But alternative meats only clock in at about 0.5% of the total volume of meat in the United States, and it's even less globally. So really figuring out how to replace that was of great interest to me, and I saw an opportunity of the many things that we have to do to reform industries that are causing us essentially global and societal harm, was to apply my manufacturing technology and mechanical engineering skills to making plant-based meat faster, better, and cheaper. So making it available and affordable to everyone was critical. And if you look at how much meat we produce in the United States, which is over 108 billion pounds annually, globally, it's about 771 billion pounds. We have a long way to go in bringing the alternative meat industry, whatever that form is, whether it's plant-based, fermentation-based, or cultivated meat, to the industrial scale to actually start feeding 9 billion people on the planet. So that's what I saw as the opportunity. So we started small as Seattle Food Tech. We added a brand because we realized that you have to be the change you want to see in the world. You can't just tell other people to use your technology because it's great. So we not only developed the technology, but we risked our own brand by putting it into place and using it.
Hey, Christie, because, I invested in Air Protein, right? You know them.
Oh, yeah, I love Air Protein. Yeah, great.
Another unreasonable company. And so I'm pretty deeply committed to, done all the research on frankly, the negative aspects of factory-based farming, and also the health issues related, et cetera, on process. And here we are, though, it was kind of hot, really hot for a while, and it's gone up and down. And lately I've been listening about, new parents are grinding meat up for their kids and feeding them in bottles. Like we've had up and down, what's been going on? Why has it been so hard, do you think? What's getting in the way?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have a couple of really strong thoughts on that. One of them is that protein production is all about economics. We are, the reason that plant-based dairy has made such an impact in the overall dairy market, and I'm talking fluid dairy like milk and milk-like products like creamer and things like that, is because they've really been able to get it to price parity with conventional dairy products from animals. Cheese less so, because obviously we're really not there in terms of the amount of cheese we produce in the United States, which is an increasingly amount because a lot of the dairy industry is seeing the opportunity to funnel dairy into cheese and make more money. So it's an economic question there as well. And, plant-based dairy just doesn't always perform like animal-based cheese does. Plant-based cheese versus animal-based cheese. Meat is an even bigger, problem to crack. Mostly because plant-based meat has spent so long being at least 3 times the cost. And of course, cultivated meat or even fermentation or, I don't know what category Air Protein comes in, but I'm guessing like a fermentation based.
Yeah, fermentation, yeah.
It ends up being so costly, especially because you have additional post-processing, which you have to do for meat. So that economic incentive isn't there yet. One of the reasons that we that I designed Seattle Food Tech the way I did, as well as put a brand on top of it so that we could prove to the market that you could make plant-based meat at price parity and high quality and profitably, was because we knew that people didn't necessarily need a lot of new types of products. Chicken nuggets, tenders, and patties are a huge portion of the animal meat industry in the United States. So we just focused on that, and then we focused on getting those to price parity. So we don't have a whole lot of products at Rebellyous Food, but we do have a whole lot of customers who benefit from the fact that we're selling at below or no more than 20% of price parity with chicken products of the same type, chicken nuggets, tenders, and patties. And that's really critical. So I think economics is a whole game. So for companies that can't quite get that economic portion in the right place, for example, Beyond Meat is a great company. They make really great products, but they're very expensive. And they're increasingly more expensive because they're increasingly have more kind of unusual ingredients like avocado oil or different types of proteins. Those are great for the premium market, but they aren't great for hitting an economic impact. And I think that that reset is going to work out because honestly, I think that there is a real good market for essentially kind of premium plant-based meat. Beyond Impossible Foods is another really good example. Very high quality products. I think as time goes on, their products will come down in price and be even more impactful in the market. And of course, Rebellyous Foods is doing that too. There are other companies is that too. But price, I hate to say this, the need for price overwhelms almost everything else.
Yeah.
Now, you can't have bad products, but you can't have expensive ones either.
Yeah, you've got the and that has to happen. They both have to happen, right? It's an and. You have to have the product that tastes good and makes you feel good, and it's got to be price competitive, or you're just not going to make it.
Exactly. And availability at that price. A lot of times people will get it, but they only get it like when it's on sale or something.
Yeah. So what's been the hardest thing, Christie? What's been the hardest thing about, you've been almost now 8 years running this company. What's been the toughest challenge as a CEO and founder?
There have been quite a few like contenders for the toughest challenge. Definitely getting our technology out into the world and finding the right place for it. Because we are a small company, we're only 12 people and 2 of them are part-time. Being able to actually take the technology that we developed, which what we originally called the Mach 1 and then the Mach 2 and then the Mach 3, and it's spelled MOCK because what it was and what it still is a system that automates the production of the most laborious part of making plant-based meat products, thereby bringing the cost down considerably and being able to offer these products at sufficient margin to run a company at a good price for the school districts, which is what we serve, to be able to offer them. And that technology, getting it out to the world, has probably been half our battle. We developed the Mach 3 in maybe the first few years, and the rest has been scaling it up, although that even was the easy part, right? The technology part. But getting it to be deployed in the world where there are people and transportation and environmental factors and permitting and everything else makes it such that you're delaying these efforts so long that you can never seem to get to the finish line. And we saw this a lot in the solar industry. We had the ability to do large scale solar when I was a kid, and it wasn't as efficient, but it was there. It was an option. And getting it out into the world, kind of restructuring the solar industry so that it could act more like a utility, being able to deploy solar in a more automated fashion so that it was more like building a coal-fired power plant. That kind of refinement was definitely one of the hardest parts of developing alternative energy. Now we're there with alternative meat. And maybe not quite there, but we're at the preface of being able to take alternative meat and bring it into, the point where interaction and interfacing with the world, whether that be people or facilities or transportation or permits or even government programs and food safety oversight and things like that, really ends up being the toughest back and forth portion of technology. It just is. I think all of us can do the physics, all of us can do the engineering, but getting other people to say, yes, you can put this in my facility and I'll use it to make, your products and other people's products tends to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, no, that's really eloquently stated and outlined. So, lots of founders and people that have ideas and things are listen to this podcast. What gets you up every morning and keeps you going, Christie? How do you stay fired up and passionate and motivated and feel rebellious? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. First of all, the people who have joined us at Rebellious Foods, even though we're only 12 people, they probably are the first thing I think of when I wake up in the morning, because
Yeah.
they also risked something to be here. They could have a safe job at Starbucks or something like that, or Amazon or something like that, but they're choosing to be the change we want to see in the world. And that kind of commitment to me is just beautiful. It should be respected in the world. It really is hard to be a change maker, and it's hard to be brave, and it's hard to be something different, and it's hard to take risks, with your own personal life. To join a startup versus a really secure company. And I'm not saying it's for everybody. It just isn't. And there are lots of ways to make change, not just that one. You can also volunteer and donate and support other changes in the world. So it's just not the only way. It's not the be all end all. But when I wake up in the morning, the people I think of first is the employees at Rebellious Foods who are right there with me trying to make this happen. And I'm really grateful for them.
Yeah, and that reinforces that need for support amongst each other to a committed purpose, to your why.
Yeah,
Because
to
that's
our why.
that's your why is about what inspired me when I mean, other people are trying to make, plant-based food that tastes like chicken. This deep passion you have, and just the way you're committed to it, and I know you sort of say the engineering is the easy part, but I'm not so sure. But I know the other part, the whole system, the whole ecosystem is really complicated in the food industry for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to go to this thing you have, and I want to come back to the purpose a little later, but I want to go to this thing about on your website, because I know about you, Christie. This is you. Rules are meant to be broken. I love that. Tell me about that overall philosophy and those values that you have, and then the 3 rules that you talk about that you like to break.
Well, that's a great question. So the rules made to be broken, it comes in a lot of different ways, because we throw up so many of our own barriers about what we can actually do. One of them is, how much can we even get done in a day? And you realize, how much time do you even spend just kind of doing flotsam when you could just take direct action? But I think also that, there is so much status quo, particularly in the meat industry. So for example, we see, how we ship things in frozen or refrigerated, how much product and ingredients we have to order at once. That also influences our cash flow, how much we, in a lot of ways, what is our place in the market? Is it really is plant-based was very much tolerated over the last 100 years or so, until Beyond and Impossible came on the scene, as it's kind of like just for the vegans and vegetarians, right? And so we often think those are the things that those are the rules we don't have to pay attention to. We should be aware of them, but just not pay attention to. So when we launched Rebellious Foods, we said our goal is to sell to the most cost-sensitive markets in places where maybe everybody else says that's just not even possible. So 90% of our customers are the USDA National School Lunch Program. So of course, in the United States, that is our school feeding program, our anti-poverty feeding program in the public school system. So it's part of the Farm Bill. It's part of the USDA's commitment to pay for free and reduced low-income school lunch program. So we decided to sell our products into that market, because if we could sell there, we could sell anywhere, essentially. And we wanted to be able to prove that the combination of technology and business and the right products selling into the right market, which obviously product market fit is true for any company, should be true for any company that's successful, is really where we basically just had to say, you don't have to essentially run a company with massive margins and the highest, what am I trying to say? The highest premium product in order to make plant-based work. We want to do exactly the opposite to show that there are other levers we can pull in order to hit price parity and profitability. So for example, we really don't sell in anything less than a pallet and haven't for years. And when people ask me, how do you get our product? I'm like, I don't know. You could you can't. You got to be in 5th grade or something.
Yeah.
So, we bypassed a lot of those like kind of smaller opportunities where others have seen a lot of volume and growth with the investment of a lot of money, like Impossible and Beyond. But we don't have that kind of investment. We needed to just go straight to the market that could make us enough margin to survive and keep doing what we're doing, whilst and at the same time showing that once you get past that idea that, start small, we didn't see that opportunity as good. We needed to kind of start a little bit higher up the food chain in terms of volume and then go from there.
Yeah, because that's one of the rules that you break around. It's not just starting small. You say, yes, we're a startup, but go big or go home is in our DNA.
Yes, exactly. Because that was the whole point. Like industrial scale production of meat is the reason we have 108 billion pounds of meat in the US, 771 billion pounds globally. A few hundred to a few 100,000 pounds of a premium meat product for a small company is great. It's a great small company. I'm all for it. I'm a consumer of such products. It's just not what we were here to do. We were here to industrialize the production of plant-based meat so that it competes one-to-one with animal meat industrial scale production, except it doesn't hurt the environment, it doesn't hurt animals, and it's better for your health.
Yeah, and it arrives, in your case, it arrives in a pallet.
It arrives in a pallet. So yeah, it's not necessarily ready for the retail or the individual market, but if you're a school food director.
It's part of your DNA around thinking big, that you're trying to really crack that scale code and go big. The other one you have is rule number 2 that you break. The rule is that it's either got to taste good or feel good. It can't be both. It doesn't. Like that's a rule that you live with.
Absolutely. I just we don't believe that it's necessary to have trade-offs. And Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and Great by Choice, has this wonderful statement about the genius of the and.
Yeah.
It can be, great for you, and you feel good about how it impacts the world, your health, the animals, the climate change. And so the genius of the and really is this idea that you can have both. The other one we also talk about is price parity and profitability. You don't necessarily have to have, price, you don't necessarily have to have these massively high margins, especially if you get to higher volumes, in order to be profitable. Because that profitability doesn't just come from the price. It also comes from how well you run your company, how efficiently you run your company. If you're choosing the right product market fit, and if you're not, then it doesn't really matter what the price is. It's not going to get there anyway. So price parity and profitability is another one. And, tastes good and feels good is another one.
So the first rule that you want to break, and this is very personal we have Kathy and I are fortunate enough to have 3 wonderful children and 4 grandchildren. Our 6-year-old grandchild lives in Seattle, eats chicken nuggets every day. Every day. And I don't think she's alone.
Okay.
And you go, come on, the first rule we got to understand is real nuggets are not made from chicken.
Well,
and so you go, wait a minute. So talk about that one. Real nuggets are made from chicken. No, they're not.
They're not. Well, so the concept of the chicken nugget, the chicken tender, and the chicken patty really doesn't have anything to do with chicken. Obviously, those were inventions in the early 90s or late 1950s, the early 1960s to take processed meat products and turn them into, honestly, at the time, in some ways, in some places around the world, safer, more processed products. Because for a long time, in the total history of our North American food system, food hasn't always been that safe, right? And as we get more people and we grew the availability of all types of foods, not just meat, we found that processing foods actually made them safer versus what was the standard at the time. Now, we're much better at offering whole products like fruits and vegetables and things like that, because we have refrigeration now,
Right.
we have better chemistry to keep bacteria at bay and other types of pathogens. But at the time, those were really, really important. And processing food made that possible. For nuggets, tenders, and patties were really invented to essentially utilize meat in a form where it was going to be safer to eat. Fast forward 70 years, we now know that some of those products, when they're made out of meat, are not very good for us. Now, they're better than what people had at the time, but they're just not as good for us. So making them out of different products, but they're ubiquitous now. People depend on them now.
Right.
And we have a lot more people to feed than we did even in 1950. So as a result, we're depending on nuggets, tenders, and patties. So the whole point is, how can we make them where they are better for you, better for the environment, and even better for the animals? Because as we expand our sphere of compassion in the world, it's going to include more and more animals, and it really
Definitely.
should.
Definitely.
So therefore, I would love to say, hey, public schools, 14,600 public school districts in the United States, you guys should solve whole food, plant-based diet, and everybody, or whatever version of a healthy diet you think is best. But it's not possible. Some of these schools don't even have really any utensils. Some don't even have stoves. All they have is ovens. To feed kids something better than chicken nuggets is to feed them a better for you version of the chicken nugget. And that's just what we have available. And sometimes you just have to meet people where they're at if you're going to make change today. Now, I hope that in another 50 years, kids go to school and they've got, fresh fruits and vegetables and, plant-based curry and, really, really scratch cooking. And a lot of places are starting to do that more and more. But this is a way we can make change today and make a true impact, because, in 2015, the World Health Organization said if we don't reduce meat by a lot in the next 10 years, we're going to have a really, really hard time bringing down the temperature on this planet. It's 10 years later, and now we're really just talking about adapting to that. But we don't want it to get even hotter.
Yeah.
So therefore, the more we can do today, that's our goal at Rebellyous Foods. It's to really meet people where they're at with products that are as healthy as you possibly can make them, healthy as you can possibly make them with the constraints they have to serve, 100,000 kids a day.
You know what? I hope that in our own small little way, that we've added all these new fans and cheerleaders of Rebellyous Foods. But let's use that as a segue to this additional interest you have around organization culture, organization psychology. What kind of company do you want to build from a people point of view, Christie? And let's talk about that. What, in a perfect world, 10 years from now, and you've got, let's say, 200 people, what does it look like and feel like to work at Rebellyous?
Yeah, I would think I love it when it's fun and exciting. That's what I want as an employee of Rebellyous Foods.
Yeah.
Because people need a lot of things. They have basic needs. And one of those basic needs is to feel good about the time they're spending on this planet, especially now when sometimes things like loneliness and separation from other family members, our work kind of replaces our community in some ways.
That's very true.
Yeah. And so being connected to the work that you do and making sure that it feels meaningful is really, really important at Rebellyous. So whenever we interview people, we do ask about, what is your reason for why Rebellyous? What does it mean to you? And people will share, oh, well, I care about climate change. I understand the impact of animal meat, or I care about animals, or I care about kids in public schools, or I care about hospitals having an option for those cardiac patients that really shouldn't be eating meat. People, if they care about what the impact that their job can make, that's what we're doing at Rebellyous Foods. And that's what I get out of it too. It's like I wake up in the morning and not only do I care about the people, but I also care about the mission. But what the mission is, I've been an ethical vegan for 30 years, but that doesn't mean that everybody needs to be an ethical vegan. What it means is that whatever it is that connects you to your work, it makes you feel like I spent the day in a really good, impactful way, is what I would hope everyone could get. And I hope they get that out of it today. If they're not, I don't want that to be true. But but most people who work at Rebellious and are with us today are saying, I'm here for the mission, I'm here for the people, I'm here for the commitment to making a
Yeah.
difference.
Well, one of the things from our own research and all the data that we've done, if you're not there for the why and the
Yes.
purpose, you're going to be in a transaction business. You can find engineers or other people anywhere. But to find someone who's deeply committed to your why
Yeah.
and wakes up that way and really wants to make a difference and have an impact.
Yes.
One of the things we talk about, Christy, is about being people first from a point of view about taking the negative friction out of people's lives on a daily basis.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts about that around how do you, like one of the pieces of research that we find is that when people go home, whatever going home at the end of a day is these days, but whenever they conclude whatever their work is for the day, when they feel that they've really brought value to other human beings and they've spent most of their time in creating value, they feel better. It's meaningful.
Yeah.
But when they've been in the world of friction, negative friction, where they feel like they're wasting their time or they're doing dumb stuff or that kind of stuff, it chews them up and they go home and they feel lousy. Like,
Yeah.
well, and I know that you've got an engineering mind on this, but how do you think about taking the negative friction out of working at Rebellious?
Well, I think it's really, really important for each of us and each of our employees at Rebellious and every employee at every company to really look honestly in the mirror and say, is this right for me?
Right.
Because I've definitely had employees at Rebellious and obviously earlier on in Seattle Food Tech where they were committed to the mission, but the stress or the certainty of working at a startup environment just wasn't for them. One of the hard things about working in a small company of just 12 people is we have no HR department. We
Right.
don't always have a lot of extra benefits. Have a small office. There aren't a lot of people around. It's kind of quiet. So we don't necessarily have, 10 people to go out to lunch together at noon. And so as a result, it's not always a perfect match just because you like the mission. And as a result, oftentimes I have talked to people about, is this really, really meeting your needs? And if not, how? I don't know if we necessarily can change the company in a way that it'll change your needs, but we can be really honest about whether or not this is the right fit. I do think it's really important for us to be okay that changing jobs should be okay, right?
100%.
Like it needs to be okay. It's actually one of the reasons I have a soapbox on this issue, which is I think that the benefit of universal health care, which of course we have in Canada, really is that you can change jobs without fear of losing your healthcare. Like, it is probably the most pro-business thing I can think of doing.
Completely agree.
Because people stay in jobs for the healthcare when they're really not happy and the company might not be happy, or they join jobs. And I just don't think that it's almost loading down employment.
It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst things is when people feel like I can't change because I'm stuck. So I quit on the job rather than because I don't want to lose my benefit. Because that is one of the, it's amazing how so much of the corporate world doesn't understand that. It just drives me. Of course, I'm both a Canadian and American citizen. I get it. But a lot of people somehow think that is, I don't know, this throwaway perk that you've got to lock people in. It's the worst possible thing. And we find, for example, that if you're at a startup, one of the great things, of course, is it's going to be uncertain. There's risk. It's not, if you want to go work and have a little bit more predictability, go work at Boeing, right? I mean, it's, it's got risk there too, but it's a different kind, right? But
yeah, exactly.
But one of the things for sure is that Rebellious, there's 12 of you. There's not a long distance between Christie and somebody to get the decision made, right? Or
That's
to
true.
decide.
And we have a lot of decision makers. Everybody's really making decisions.
And a lot of people are providing input. And if you're 12 person, you better matter.
Yeah.
You got to make a difference. Otherwise, how could you be there? Because you can't afford to have people that aren't making a difference.
Exactly.
Now, I know you've got open positions at Rebellious right now. If I were applying, interview me. Give me a couple questions that I would know I could be a rebellious person.
Well, the first question is always, and has always been for now almost 8 years, why Rebellious? Why do you want to work at Rebellious versus anywhere else? And
great question. I'm ready, but I've given you that.
Okay.
You are fired up. You know that I am committed to the purpose and I've done all my research, and man, I am all in on Rebellyous. Now, take me to another question.
The second question that we usually ask is, what would you do if you don't know what to do?
Ooh,
Yeah, and that's a really important question because, when I was first starting the company, we couldn't believe how many people didn't necessarily know what to do when there wasn't something that it hadn't already been defined. So that's really led us to this company mantra that said, Margaret Mead said, build the change you want to see or be the change you want to see in the world. So we change it to build the change you want to see in the world. If our company needs a, updated policy on, I don't know, PTO, or if it needs an updated policy on travel expenses or something like that, propose it. Don't just be mad about it, just propose it.
do it.
Build the change that you want to see in the world.
I love that because the mantra we have is that if you want to, you have to be the culture that you want to be.
You want to be yeah, exactly.
You can't wish it or delegate it.
Exactly. And I think that it's not for everybody. Like a lot of people like to have an HR department to go to, an accounting department to go to, mediation department to go to if they're upset about something. Like people like that, but some people really enjoy being in a small company where if they say, "Hey, I think we should have like Friday lunches and we'll just have like Rebellyous products," we can do that.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now
I personally wanted dogs in the office and I fought hard for that one.
I see you've got your dog bed back. Okay. Now you give me the second question. I've done pretty good at that one. Now give me the third one. Okay. I'm still working at getting hired here.
Yeah. So then the next is it really usually has to get down to the skill level that we're looking for and whether or not that build the change you want to see in the world can get down to what happens if you don't know who to go to or really how to do your job. Because it's not just about feeling I'm not comfortable with this part of the culture, or maybe the lights are too bright and I want them lower or something like that. We've had people do all those things, which is great. Like we change the lighting in the office and stuff like that. But then it comes down to, can you get to yes? Because getting to yes is really, really important in a startup. Everything that we do has someone or something that doesn't want us to do it.
Yep.
Because we replace meat on a large scale. Even if it's our allies, sometimes unintentionally, they don't want us to do whatever it is that we're doing. Or even our customers. It's kind of like, hey, how do we get to yes with this customer? And it turns out we had this actually really very adorable request from our customers that for some reason they didn't want our swag, which is fine. A lot of customers just decline swag altogether. They don't want like commercial in their schools, which is great. We're very happy with that. They can just generally label it as a vegan nugget or a nugget or whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
But what we did ask the schools once, like, if you did have swag, what would you want? And what the kids wanted were stick-on tattoos. Like, I would never have thought of that. And for some reason, that was kind of like the personal connection that the school wanted. Something that was going to listen to them. And so we did. I'm not joking. I think they cost like $3 or like $10 for like 100 or something.
That is fantastic.
But those kinds of like connections where they feel connected to the mission, the customer, but that's a get to yes thing.
Get to yes.
Yeah. So our logistics manager often gets to yes with distributors. It's like he can.
I think we're we probably connected to most of these, but I want to add a piece to it.
Okay.
I worked for a CEO and we had 10, deeply defined modern values. And I used to say that if you did an autopsy on this guy, these values, he was those values. He was them. And I'm hearing about some of yours, but like getting to yes, finding a way to get things done, breaking the rules. What other are Christie Lagally values that if we did a beautiful autopsy on you, they would tumble out?
Move at the speed of a startup.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Really important.
What does move at the speed of a startup mean?
What we often find is that the length of time it can be in a traditional company to resolve an issue fill the toilet paper in the bathroom, order the right pieces of equipment, tends to be what can bog down a company so much that cumulative, you can literally just go bankrupt. And, the Y Combinator, which was an accelerator program that we went through 8 years ago, often says there's a really good video on that I highly recommend to everyone called Creating Luck. And moving at the speed of the startup and creating luck are essentially this idea that direct to action, get it done today. Don't send that email today, get it started. You don't need to just put it on your list and then maybe on Friday I'll send all the emails. When somebody could be getting stuff done in the background while other things are happening. And the truth of the matter is, it's a matter of survival for startups. We don't have a ton of money. We don't have a ton of investment, or we have some, but we don't have a ton. We're not the most highly invested company in the space by like 10x. And as a result, if we were to kind of move at the speed of a large company, we wouldn't survive. Like, the customers wouldn't get what they needed. And so that's a really important value. Move at the speed of a startup, get it done today. And it also can be very fulfilling to people once they actually get the hang of it.
That's such an interesting
It's a very
comment.
productive thing.
Getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to often procrastinating, like putting it off.
Yeah.
Like in your case, you said the trivial example is you need toilet paper in there, go get it. Yeah. If you've got to go down to the loading dock to get that on the pallet because your school district is waiting for that thing, what are you going to do? Are you going to wait for the pallet loader to show up?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get there and load the darn stuff on the pallet. So I love that attitude, that move at the speed of a startup.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've transitioned ahead. I'm giving you, it's 5 years from now, you've got 200 people, you're the star of this. I brought you on stage, and I'm going to say, Christie, tell me about what it feels like to work at Rebellyous. What does it feel like right now? What's your description? How are people feeling? What's happening? Where's all the joy?
I hope it feels, I hope that what I would say is it feels transformational. Not just personally transformational, learning new skills, being able to be more productive than you've ever been in your life, being able to use that in your future world, but also that Rebellyous itself is transformational to the animal meat industry to show that plant-based meat is an economic powerhouse to replace animal meat. So we don't just want to be creating a separate industry. We want the animal meat industry to embrace our technology, our, that overall meat production and supply chains can be transformed. And even, and this is important for our technology, that our production system can actually transform a meat processing facility into a plant-based meat production facility, thereby not only making it more profitable to run, nicer to be there than slaughtering animals, and better for the world, better for the environment, better for the company. But transformational is what the purpose and the long-term goal of Rebellyous is.
And it's one of the reasons why that I love talking to you, Christie, because I use this as a wrap-up kind of a comment, because maybe I'm stretching the metaphor too far. But in a lot of organizations, we're still doing farm factory kind of treating of humans.
Yes.
It's not too much different than the old assembly line, shut up, do your transaction, bolt that nut on and we treat people more transactionally. We treat them as replaceable parts. And it's shocking because it's 2025 and and of course people are using efficiency and even now the movement towards AI as reasons to somehow take the humanness out of workplaces. But at Rebellyous, let's say that you're up on that stage and you're talking about how human it is to be at Rebellyous. Tell me about what you're most proud of around that humanness about part of your transformation.
Well, particularly in the meat industry, what you said is so very true. Right now we see especially the last 5 years to even 10 years, we have seen so many meat companies resort to using child labor in meat processing, in sanitation processing, and then of course what you're talking about at least as it applies in the meat industry, is just people cutting up animals and working in really difficult conditions, frozen food conditions, slaughter conditions. These jobs don't need to be horrible if they are replaced with plant-based meat production. And so the people in the equation needs to be a good job, that factory jobs are productive jobs, that we can see the future for meat production as a good job for a a reasonably trained technician, where you're not exposed to the viruses and the industrial scale animal agriculture or the frozen food issue, where having to keep it cold all the time, which is a major need for meat processing, but not for plant-based and not other types of fermentation products. And so there are just better ways for the people who work at these companies. So transformation just isn't just about what the consumer gets. It's absolutely about what the employee experiences at the factory, so that those are better factory jobs, not just different ones.
You know what? I have been in the slaughterhouse. I know what that's like. And I know that most human beings could not stand walking in it, let alone watch what happens in there. But on a more elevated status, it's about creating an experience for human beings on work that's meaningful, that matters, that humans ought to do. Yes, robots and machines, but that's not the answer around cruelty and all the other things that are in the way. And I'm wishing that you have that moment, Christie.
Thank you.
You have not only the transformational of what Rebellyous is, but you create the conditions for this transformational culture, that you're a candidate for a Jim Collins book of Good to Great. And I'd love to speak about Rebellyous and what you've done to help create that. And it's hard. And it's hard. And I wish you well. And thank you for bringing your fun and your... Go to the website, Rebellyous. Can one little nugget change the world? Absolutely. Factories, not factory farm. There's so many fun things just on who you are, and I'm hoping in all our ways we can contribute to it. And thank you for doing what you're doing and being an inspiration to the people listening on the end of the show. And thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a ton of fun talking to you.
I look forward to talking more, Christie. Okay.
Likewise.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.